I didn't yell when she slammed the door in my face. I didn't curse or threaten or make a scene on that pristine Oakville driveway. I simply stood there for a moment, the December snow settling on my worn jacket, and then I turned back to my 1997 Corolla and drove away. Jennifer stood in her doorway, arms crossed, watching me leave with that satisfied smile on her face. She thought she had won. She thought she had finally gotten rid of the embarrassing old man who kept showing up uninvited. What Jennifer didn't know was that I had just made a decision that would cost her everything she thought she had. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Robert Chen. I'm 72 years old, and for 42 years I worked as a forensic accountant. Not the glamorous kind you see in movies. I was the methodical, patient kind who finds the money people don't want found. I worked for the Canada Revenue Agency first, then I moved to private firms. Later, after my reputation grew, I consulted on some of the largest fraud cases in Ontario. I found hidden assets in divorce cases. Spouses would claim they were broke, living on nothing, and I would find their offshore accounts, their shell corporations, their secret real estate holdings. I unraveled money laundering schemes for the RCMP. I tracked down pension fraud. I testified in court 47 times, and I never lost a case. I was very, very good at what I did, and I was paid accordingly. But you would never know it to look at me. My late wife Margaret and we didn't believe in showing off. We lived in the same modest bungalow in East York that we bought in 1983 for $87,000. The house was small, just 1,100 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a basement that flooded every spring. The roof needed replacing. The kitchen still had the original avocado green countertops from the 80s. We drove old cars. My Corolla was 26 years old. The paint was faded, the passenger door squeaked, and the heating only worked on the highest setting. Margaret had driven a 2003 Honda Civic until the day she died. We shopped at No Frills. We used coupons. Margaret grew tomatoes in the backyard every summer, and I fixed things myself rather than calling repairmen. I learned plumbing from YouTube videos. I patched the roof myself every few years. People who saw us probably thought we were struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, barely scraping by. They had no idea. When Margaret died of pancreatic cancer 3 years ago, I thought my son David would be my anchor. He was all I had left. Margaret and I had only one child. David was our world. We put him through University of Toronto, helped him with his first apartment, supported him when he changed careers twice trying to find his path. I thought he would be there for me when Margaret was gone. I was wrong. David met Jennifer at a corporate mixer in 2019. She worked in pharmaceutical sales. She made good money, over $120,000 a year, plus bonuses. She drove a leased BMW 5 Series. She wore clothes with designer labels I didn't recognize. Prada, Gucci, Valentino. Her purses cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She was beautiful in that polished, careful way. Perfect makeup, hair always styled, nails always done. She spoke confidently, laughed loudly, and commanded attention in every room. My son was completely smitten. I tried to be happy for him. I really did. The wedding was at the Arcadian Court in downtown Toronto. The venue alone cost $35,000. There were 200 guests, an 8-piece band, a dessert table with a chocolate fountain, and centerpieces with imported flowers that Jennifer's mother told everyone cost $200 each. Jennifer's parents paid for most of it. Her father, Richard, owned a chain of dental clinics across the Greater Toronto area, 7 locations. He drove a Porsche Cayenne and wore a Rolex that caught the light every time he moved his hand. Jennifer's mother, Patricia, had never worked a day in her life. and spent her time organizing charity galas and redecorating their glass-walled mansion in Mississauga. They talked constantly about building generational wealth, about giving their grandchildren every advantage, about the importance of marrying well and maintaining certain standards. I wore my only suit, a gray one I'd bought for Margaret's funeral. I gave a toast about how Margaret wished she could be there, about how proud she would have been of David, about how Jennifer was now part of our family. Jennifer smiled during the toast, but the smile never reached her eyes. She looked at me the way you might look at an old piece of furniture someone insisted on bringing to a new house. Tolerated, but not wanted. The problem started small. Margaret and I had always done Sunday dinners with David. Every single Sunday for his entire life, unless he was traveling. Nothing fancy. Just roast chicken or spaghetti or pot roast. We'd watch hockey night in Canada together. The Maple Leafs. Usually losing. But we didn't care. It was our time. After the wedding, those invitations became less frequent. First, David would say he and Jennifer had plans. Then it became every other week, then once a month. Then they stopped completely. I called David one Sunday in October, 2 months after the wedding. I had made his favorite meal, beef stew, the way Margaret used to make it, with those little pearl onions he loved. "Dad, I'm sorry," he said. His voice sounded strained. "Jennifer's family does brunch on Sundays. Her parents, her sister, her brother. It's a whole thing. They go to this place in Mississauga, the Waterside Inn. It's important to her. It's how her family bonds." "I could come to brunch," I offered. "I'd love to meet them better." There was a long pause. "It's kind of a their thing, Dad. You know, just Jennifer's family. They've been doing it for years. I can't just bring someone. I'm not someone, David. I'm your father." I know. It's complicated. Jennifer's still adjusting to everything. Give it time." I didn't push. I didn't want to be that father-in-law. The clingy one. The one who couldn't let go. So I gave it time. Then came the grandchildren. Emma was born in March 2021. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Dark hair like David, Jennifer's nose. I saw her for the first time in the hospital, through the nursery window. David sent me a photo. I printed it and put it on my fridge. I thought becoming a grandfather would change things, bring us closer. Margaret had talked about grandchildren constantly during her illness, during those last awful months when the pain medication made her confused, but she still had moments of clarity. "You'll be such a good grandfather, Robert," she'd said, holding my hand in the hospice. "Promise me you'll be there for them. Promise me you won't let anything keep you away." I promised, but Jennifer had other plans. The first Christmas after Emma was born, I drove to their new house in Oakville. They had bought it 6 months earlier. A massive 4-bedroom colonial on a corner lot, 1,800 square feet. 3 bathrooms, a finished basement, a 2-car garage. The house cost $1.8 million. I knew because David had told me, his voice filled with pride and anxiety. The mortgage was $7,200 a month. I arrived at noon on Christmas Eve with my car full of gifts. I'd spent weeks preparing. I bought board books, the kind with thick pages that babies can't rip. I'd built a wooden train set in my basement, sanding each piece smooth, painting it with non-toxic paint in bright primary colors. Margaret had always said handmade gifts meant more than store-bought ones. And I'd bought a savings bond for $5,000. For Emma's future, for university, or a car, or whatever she might need. Jennifer met me at the door before I even made it up the walkway. She was wearing white pants and a cashmere sweater. Her hair was pulled back. She looked annoyed. "Robert," she said. "Not hello, not Merry Christmas, just my name, like a statement of fact." We talked about this. Talked about what? I was holding the wooden train set. It was heavy. I'd made the base from oak. About Christmas gifts. We're doing a minimalist approach with Emma. No plastic toys, no clutter. We want her to grow up appreciating experiences, not things. It's not plastic, I said. I made it myself. It's wood. Solid oak, I thought. And we've asked family not to give financial gifts, she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. It sets the wrong precedent. We have an RESP already set up for Emma. It's managed by a proper financial advisor, someone who actually knows what they're doing. I could see David behind her in the foyer. He was holding Emma. She was wearing a little red dress with white tights. She was beautiful. 9 months old and already so big. David wouldn't look at me. He was staring at the floor. I just wanted to see her, I said quietly, to give her something from her grandfather. And that's very sweet, Robert. It really is. Jennifer's voice was the kind of patient tone you use with a child who doesn't understand. But we need you to respect our boundaries as parents. We decide what comes into our home and what our daughter is exposed to. She reached out and took the train set from my hands. I'll put this in the garage. Maybe we can donate it to a shelter or something. Somewhere it can actually be used. Then she closed the door. I stood on the driveway, holding the savings bond, watching my breath create clouds in the December air. The houses on the street all had elaborate light displays, inflatable snowmen, projections of Santa's sleigh, music playing from outdoor speakers. I got back in my Corolla and drove home. I didn't see Emma again until her first birthday party in March. Jennifer sent a formal invitation, printed on heavy cardstock with gold lettering. The party was at a rented venue in Mississauga, the Riverside Event Center, $200 an hour. There were 40 people there. Most of them I didn't know. Jennifer's family, her friends from work, a photographer Jennifer had hired for $600 to document the day. There was a dessert table with a custom cake shaped like a carousel, a balloon arch, gift bags for the guests with designer baby clothes inside. I sat at a table in the corner and ate a piece of the carousel cake. It was red velvet. Probably cost $40 a slice based on what I knew about event catering. I watched strangers hold Emma. Jennifer's mother carried her around the room, showing her off. Jennifer's sister fed her pieces of cake, while the photographer snapped photos. I wasn't asked to hold her. Not once. I left after an hour. No one noticed. Lucas was born in April 2023. Another grandson. 8 pounds, 1 ounce. Blonde hair like Jennifer's father. The pattern continued. I'd call to arrange visits, and Jennifer would have reasons. Emma was napping. They had plans at the park. Lucas had a cold, and she didn't want me getting sick. Jennifer's parents were visiting from Mississauga, and the house was too crowded. Maybe next month, Robert, but next month never came. I started showing up at David's office downtown. He worked in financial planning at a firm on King Street. I'd wait in the lobby and take him to lunch at the Tim Hortons across the street, just to see my son, just to feel like I still had some connection to what was left of my family. We'd sit in the orange plastic chairs, and I'd ask about the kids. David would show me photos on his phone. Emma at the park, Lucas in his high chair, birthday parties I wasn't invited to, day trips to Niagara Falls I didn't know about. One day in March, David set down his coffee without drinking it. He had a double-double that he just stirred with the wooden stick, around and around. Dad, you can't keep doing this, he said. Doing what? Having lunch with my son? Showing up at my office unannounced. It's awkward. My colleagues are starting to notice, and Jennifer feels like you're going around her, circumventing her. Circumventing her, I repeated. I'm trying to see my grandchildren, David. I'm trying to have a relationship with my family. I know, Dad, I know. He looked miserable, dark circles under his eyes. His tie was slightly crooked. "But she's home with the kids all day. She handles the family schedule, the play dates, all of that. I have to support her decisions. I'm her husband. And what about being my son?" He didn't have an answer for that. He just stirred his coffee until it got cold and then threw it away. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in early December, 3 weeks ago. I'd been to the doctor the week before, routine checkup, but the EKG showed something, an arrhythmia. My heart wasn't beating quite right. The doctor said it wasn't immediately dangerous, but we needed to monitor it. He used words like cardiac event and lifestyle changes and advanced age. I'm 72 years old. I know what that means. It made me think about time, about how much I had left, about what I was spending it on. I decided to try one more time. I went to Indigo and bought Emma a book. It was called There Are Stars in the Sky. Margaret had read it to David when he was little. I found the same edition with the same illustrations. I bought a stuffed bear for Lucas, a simple one. Soft brown fur and black button eyes. I didn't call first. I should have. I know I should have. But I was tired of being scheduled, tired of being managed and kept at arm's length from my own flesh and blood. I pulled up to the Oakville house at 3 in the afternoon. I knew the kids would be up from their naps. The circular driveway had Jennifer's BMW and a new Range Rover I hadn't seen before. White with chrome trim, probably $80,000. David's Audi was gone. He'd be at work. I rang the doorbell. It played a melody, some classical piece I didn't recognize. Jennifer opened the door with her phone pressed to her ear. She was wearing yoga clothes. Lululemon, probably. Her hair was in a ponytail. When she saw me, her face changed, from neutral to annoyed in less than a second. "I'll call you back," she said into the phone. Then she looked at me. "Robert, what are you doing here?" "I brought some things for the kids." I held up the bag from Indigo. "Can I come in? Just for a few minutes?" "I won't stay long." "This really isn't a good time. I'm in the middle of organizing Emma's gymnastics schedule, and Lucas needs to go down for his second nap soon, and I have a conference call at 4. From inside the house, I heard a little voice. "Mommy, who's that?" My heart jumped. Emma. I hadn't heard her voice in months. "That's your Emma, isn't it?" I tried to look past Jennifer into the house. "I haven't seen her since her birthday party. I just want to say hello. 5 minutes." "Robert?" Jennifer stepped outside onto the porch and pulled the door mostly closed behind her. The December wind was cold. She didn't seem to notice. "You can't just show up unannounced like this. It's disrespectful of our boundaries. We've talked about this multiple times." "Boundaries?" "Jennifer, I'm her grandfather. I'm not some stranger. I'm family. And I'm her mother." Her voice was ice cold now, sharp. "And I decide who has access to my children and when. That's what being a parent means. I'm not asking for access. I'm asking to see my grandchildren." "It's the same thing, Robert. And honestly," she crossed her arms, "this obsessive behavior is concerning. David and I have discussed it extensively. The constant calls, showing up at his office, now this. It's not healthy." Something cracked inside my chest. "What did you tell him?" She smiled then. It was a cruel smile, the kind of smile someone gives when they know they've won. "I told him what I see," she said. "An old man with too much time on his hands, driving his rust bucket car across the city to show up uninvited at our doorstep with cheap toys from the mall because he has nothing else in his life. No hobbies, no friends. Just this obsessive fixation on children who barely know him." She paused, letting that sink in. "It's sad, really," she continued. "David feels bad for you. He does. But he agrees with me that we need to set firm limits. You had your chance to build something meaningful, to create wealth, to make connections, to give your child real opportunities, and you chose to live in that tiny house in East York and pinch pennies and drive a car that's older than some of my cousins." She gestured at my Corolla sitting in her driveway, looking shabby next to her BMW and Range Rover. "That's fine for you, Robert. You made your choices. But David and I are not going to expose Emma and Lucas to that mentality. We're building something here. Real generational wealth. Real opportunities. We're surrounding our children with successful people. People who can open doors for them. People who understand what it takes to win in this world." She uncrossed her arms. "You don't fit into that picture. I'm sorry if that's harsh, but someone needs to be honest with you. You're a reminder of everything we're trying to move beyond." I stood there. The snow was falling harder now, landing on my old jacket, the one I'd owned for 15 years, the one with a broken zipper I kept meaning to replace. Something shifted in my chest. Not my heart arrhythmia, something else. Something cold and clear and perfectly calm. "I understand," I said quietly. Jennifer looked surprised. "You do?" "I do. I understand completely." I bent down and set the bag with the book and the stuffed bear on the porch. "Tell David I'll be in touch. Robert, I hope you're not going to make this into some kind of..." "Goodbye, Jennifer." I walked back to my rust bucket car and got in. The engine turned over on the third try. It always did that in cold weather. As I pulled away, I saw her through the rear view mirror. She was already on her phone again, probably calling her mother to complain about the eccentric old man who wouldn't take a hint. She had no idea what she had just done. She had absolutely no idea. That night, I sat in my basement office. It was the one room in the house where Margaret had let me spread out. Filing cabinets lined the walls. I had my old computer set up. The desk I'd built myself in 1991. I opened the filing cabinet labeled Real Estate and pulled out a folder. Inside were 3 letters, all from the same company, Urban Core Development. The first letter was dated March 2023. It was an offer to purchase my property at 42 Dawson Avenue, East York. The offer was for $2.1 million. I had turned it down. The second letter was dated September 2023. The offer had increased to $2.4 million. I had turned that down too. The third letter was dated November 2024. Just last month, the offer was now $2.7 million. You see, Jennifer wasn't entirely wrong. I did live in a tiny house. The bungalow was only 1,100 square feet. It needed a new roof. The bathroom still had the original pink tiles from 1983. The kitchen was outdated. The basement flooded. But what Jennifer didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known because she never asked, was that my tiny house sat on a 50-foot lot in East York. The lot was zoned for mid-rise development. The entire street was being bought up by developers. They were building condos, 6-story buildings with ground floor retail, the kind of development the city was desperate for, transit-oriented, walking distance to the subway. My neighbors on both sides had already sold. The Johnsons got $2.3 million, the Patels got $2.5. I was the last holdout on the block. Urban Core needed my property to complete their development plan. Their architectural drawings showed a building that spanned all 3 lots. Without my lot, their project couldn't proceed. I'd turned down every offer because this was the house where Margaret and I had raised David. This was where she'd tended her tomatoes every summer, where we'd hosted David's birthday parties, where she'd died, in our bedroom, holding my hand. I couldn't imagine selling it, but I could imagine it now. I opened another filing cabinet. This one was labeled David Financial. Inside was a different kind of document. In 2022, when David and Jennifer were trying to buy the Oakville house, they'd run into problems. The house was $1.8 million. They had good incomes, but not enough for the down payment the bank wanted. Not enough to qualify for the mortgage they needed. Jennifer's parents had offered to help. $50,000. They'd made a big show of it at a family dinner. Richard had handed David an envelope with a check inside while everyone clapped. I had given David $400,000. I didn't make a big show of it. I just called him into my basement office and showed him my investment statements. Showed him that I could afford it. Explained that it was an early inheritance. Money that would be his eventually anyway. "Dad, I can't take this," David had said, staring at the check. "You can, and you will. Your mother would want you to have a good home, to give our grandchildren a stable place to grow up. But what about you?" "I'm fine, David. I have everything I need." My lawyer, Patricia Kwan, had structured the gift carefully. She was a sharp woman in her 50s who I'd worked with on fraud cases over the years. She understood asset protection. The $400,000 was documented as a gift, properly declared. But the language Patricia used was very specific. The gift was contingent on David maintaining a meaningful familial relationship with the donor, including but not limited to regular contact and reasonable access to any grandchildren. At the time, it had seemed like a formality, just legal boilerplate. David was my son, of course we'd have a meaningful relationship. Now, that language was leverage. I called Patricia the next morning at 9 a.m. "Robert Chen," she said warmly when she answered. "It's been too long. How are you holding up?" "I need to sell my house, Patricia, quickly. And I need to explore my legal options regarding a contingent gift I made to my son." There was a pause. I could hear her sit up straighter. "Tell me everything." I did. I told her about Jennifer, about being kept from my grandchildren, about the door slamming in my face, about Emma's voice asking who I was, as if I were a stranger. When I finished, Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "That 400,000, she finally said. "The contingent language. You want to invoke it. Can I? Legally? It's complicated. You could make a case that the condition has been violated, but it would be messy, expensive. You'd be suing your own son, and there's no guarantee you'd win. A judge might say the language is too vague. That meaningful relationship is subjective." My heart sank. "So there's nothing I can do?" I didn't say that. I could hear the smile in her voice. "The deed to the Oakville house lists David as the sole owner, not Jennifer. And you have documented evidence of the gift and its conditions. If you wanted to approach David directly to explain that you're reconsidering the family relationship that was the basis of the gift, to suggest that perhaps you need the money back, he'd have to tell Jennifer. Eventually. But Robert, what do you actually want here? Revenge? Or your grandchildren?" I thought about that. About Margaret's face in the hospice. About the promise I'd made. "Both," I said honestly. Patricia laughed. "Then let's give you both." The next call I made was to Urban Core Development. I spoke to a man named Michael Torres. He was the VP of Acquisitions. He'd signed all 3 letters. "Mr. Chen," he sounded thrilled to hear from me. "Please tell me this is good news." "I'm ready to sell," I said, "but I need to close in 30 days. 30 days? He hesitated. "That's very fast. We'd need to arrange financing, do inspections. You've been trying to buy this property for 2 years. You've done your inspections. You have your architectural plans. You know exactly what you're getting. I want $2.4 million, cash, closing in 30 days. Take it or leave it." There was a pause. I could hear typing. "Let me call you back in 2 hours." He called back in 45 minutes. "We have a deal." I waited 3 days before calling David. I wanted him to worry, to wonder. When I finally called his cell phone, he answered on the first ring. "Dad, I've been trying to reach you. Where have you been?" "I've been busy," I said calmly. "I wanted to let you know I'm selling the house. I'm leaving Toronto. I thought you should hear it from me." Silence. Complete silence for at least 10 seconds. "What?" His voice cracked. "What do you mean you're selling the house?" "The house on Dawson Avenue. I've accepted an offer. We close in 30 days. I'll be moving out of the city after that." "Dad, you can't just leave. That's Mom's house. That's our house. All my childhood memories are there." "Your childhood is over, David. You have your own house now, your own family. You've made it very clear that I'm not part of that family, so I'm making a new life for myself. Somewhere I'm wanted." "That's not fair. I never said." "You didn't have to say it. Jennifer said it for you. And you let her." More silence. "Where will you go?" "I don't know yet. Victoria, maybe. Or Halifax. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere by the water. Margaret always wanted to retire near the ocean." "Dad, please. Let's talk about this. Can I come over?" "There's one more thing, David." I kept my voice steady, professional, the way I used to sound when I was testifying in court. "I'm also going to need you to buy out my interest in the Oakville house." "What interest? You gave us that money." "It was a gift. It was a contingent gift. Didn't you read the paperwork Patricia prepared? The gift was conditional on maintaining a meaningful familial relationship. Given that I'm being denied access to my grandchildren, that your wife has made it clear I'm not welcome in your lives, I think it's fair to say that condition has been violated." I could hear his breathing get faster. "You're not serious." "I'm completely serious. The gift was $400,000. With the increase in property values and reasonable interest over 2 years, I'm estimating my share at $485,000. I'll need that return so I can fund my retirement in my new city." "We don't have that kind of money. That was the down payment. It's tied up in the house. We'd have to refinance or sell." I finished for him. "Yes, I'm aware. Talk to Jennifer. Talk to her father with his dental clinics and his Porsche. I'm sure they'll figure something out. You have 30 days. "Dad, you can't do this." "I can, David, and I am. Patricia will be sending over the formal documentation tomorrow. You should probably get your own lawyer." I hung up. He called back immediately. I didn't answer. He called 6 more times that evening. I turned off my phone. Jennifer called me at 7:30 the next morning. I'd just poured my first cup of coffee. She didn't say hello. She just started screaming. "You manipulative, vindictive old man. That money was a gift. You can't just take it back because your feelings are hurt." I took a sip of my coffee. It was still too hot. "Good morning, Jennifer." "Don't you good morning me. Do you have any idea what you're doing? We built our entire financial plan around that house. Our mortgage is based on that down payment. You're trying to destroy us." "I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I'm simply reconsidering a gift that was made under certain conditions. Conditions that are no longer being met." "What conditions?" "There were no conditions. It was a gift. The gift was contingent on maintaining a meaningful familial relationship. You can read the documentation yourself. Patricia Kwan structured it very carefully." "That's insane. No court would uphold that. It's too vague. Meaningful relationship doesn't mean anything. We'll fight this. My father's lawyer will tear you apart." I set down my coffee cup. "Your father's lawyer will tell you several things, Jennifer. First, that even if you win, which is far from certain, the legal fees will cost you close to $600,000 and take at least 3 years. Second, that during those 3 years, the cloud on your title will make it impossible to refinance or sell the property. Third, that I have documentation of every refused visit, every canceled plan, every instance of you denying me access to my grandchildren." I paused. Patricia is very thorough. She's been documenting everything since our first conversation. Every unanswered phone call, every text message, every excuse. It paints a very clear picture of you systematically excluding me from my family. Jennifer was breathing hard. I could hear it through the phone. "What do you want?" she finally asked. "I want what any grandfather wants. Regular visits with my grandchildren. Real visits, not supervised, managed interactions where I sit in a corner while you parade them around to your friends. I want to take Emma to the park, to read Lucas bedtime stories, to be part of their lives. And if we agree to that, you'll drop this insane lawsuit?" "It's not a lawsuit yet. It's a request for return of a conditional gift. But yes, if you agree to reasonable access, the Oakville house remains yours free and clear. And I'll also set up education trusts for Emma and Lucas. $200,000 each. They can access the money when they turn 18 for university or whatever they choose." Another long silence. Define reasonable access. "Once a week, Sunday afternoons. 3 hours minimum. And major holidays. Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. I want to be there for birthday parties, school plays, everything a grandfather should be there for. Once a week is too much. David works long hours. I have the kids' schedules to manage. We have our own family commitments. Then I'll see you in court, Jennifer." "Wait." She was quiet for a moment, calculating. "Once a week, Sunday afternoons, 2 hours, 3 hours. And it's non-negotiable. I'm 72 years old. I have a heart condition. I don't know how much time I have left. I'm not spending what's left of my life fighting you for scraps." More silence. "Fine," she said. Her voice was pure ice. "Once a week, 3 hours. Sundays. And holidays. But I want it in writing. A legal agreement, so you can't move the goalposts later. Patricia will draw up the agreement. We'll all sign it. You, David, and me. Witnessed and notarized." "You're insane," she said quietly. "No, Jennifer. I'm a forensic accountant. I document everything. And I never lose." She hung up without saying goodbye. We signed the agreement on December 23rd in Patricia's office downtown. Her conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Ontario. Jennifer wore all black, a designer suit that probably cost $2,000. Her face was carefully blank. No emotion at all. David looked like he hadn't slept in days. His shirt was wrinkled. His tie was crooked. Patricia laid out 3 copies of the agreement, 5 pages each, single-spaced, every contingency covered. Weekly visits, holiday schedules, procedures for scheduling changes, consequences for violations. Jennifer read every word. So did David. They asked their lawyer questions. He was a nervous young man in his 30s who kept adjusting his glasses. Finally, they signed. I signed. Patricia signed as witness. "The Oakville house is yours," I said to David. "Free and clear. No more questions about the gift. And the education trusts for Emma and Lucas will be established by January 15th. Patricia will be the trustee." David nodded. He couldn't look at me. Jennifer stood up without a word and walked out. Christmas Day was 2 days later. I drove to Oakville at 10 in the morning. The roads were empty. Snow had fallen overnight, and everything looked clean and white. I brought new gifts. A puzzle for Emma. A set of stacking blocks for Lucas. Nothing expensive. Nothing that would trigger Jennifer's minimalist rules. David answered the door. "Hi, Dad," he said quietly. "Merry Christmas, son." Jennifer was in the kitchen, cooking. She didn't greet me, didn't acknowledge me at all. But Emma came running from the living room. She was wearing a red velvet dress. "Who are you?" she asked, looking up at me with David's eyes. "I'm your Grandpa Robert," I said, kneeling down. I brought you something." She took the puzzle. It had butterflies on it. "Thank you," she said politely, and ran back to show her mother. Lucas was in a playpen in the living room, 10 months old, blonde hair standing straight up. I picked him up. He was warm and heavy and perfect. I held him for an hour while Emma showed me her toys. Jennifer watched from the kitchen, arms crossed, but she didn't interfere. When I left at 1 o'clock, Emma waved goodbye from the window. It wasn't much.